Melissa, thank you very much for your very kind words. And to all of you, I thank you for this wonderful opportunity. It's nice to be recognized. It's nice to be recognized. I've often said that when I get awards, for me, it's not just for me. It's for the wonderful people who work with me. I have a phenomenal staff. Rachel Maddow says we have the best staff on Capitol Hill, and I agree. And I want to thank Krista Boyd, who has been our #1 person with regard to FOIA, giving her blood, her sweat, and her tears for this cause. Please give her a hand, please. I want to thank you for inviting me here today and for honoring me with this Sunshine in Government Award. It is especially gratifying to receive this award from the News Media for Open Government. I truly appreciate the critical work that you do every single day. Over the last 2 years, we have seen sinister attempts to undermine the free press. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. 200 years from now, people will be reading about this period. They will ask the question. They will say, I can't believe that they elected Barack Obama twice. And they will say, I can't believe they elected Donald Trump. And they will say, and during this period, I want you to listen to me carefully. And by the way, this is not coming from a Democrat, not coming from a Republican, coming from a human being. They will ask the question, when you saw the press being suppressed, this is what they're going to ask us 200 years from now. When you saw a White House that blocked information from getting to the people's representatives, when you saw the first thing that our president did when he walked into the Oval Office is send out memos to career employees telling them that they cannot communicate or be whistleblowers. When you saw our CIA, our FBI being attacked. When you saw witnesses that were necessary for the legislative branch to do its job, but could not get the cooperation, unprecedented no cooperation from this administration. When you saw it, you know what they're going to do? They're going to ask the question, what did you do? What did you do? Did you stand on the sidelines of life? Did you say, it's somebody else's business? Did you write the story? Did you write it accurately? Did you take a moment to write the editorial? Did you write it as you saw it? Did you become fearful and say, I'm afraid of what's going to happen to me if I do what the Constitution says I can do? They're going to ask the question. And so I want you to know that I view an attack on our press as an attack on all of us. And I will fight with everything I've got. And I want you to understand that I got your back. I got your back. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't believe in fake news. Hello? I am the son of two Pentecostal ministers. In my house, a lie was a lie, and the truth was the truth. I'll never forget, I learned this lesson early. Melissa, when I was a little boy, I guess maybe about 5, my mother had made a chocolate cake. And I just love me some chocolate cake. I always said when I grow up, I want to eat all the chocolate cake I can get. And then you find out you can't eat it because you get fat, so. But anyway, as a little boy, I wanted a piece of chocolate cake. And so I reached my hand into the chocolate cake. Took me a nice, didn't use a knife, just took me a nice piece and ate it. Oh, it was so good. It was good until my mother came in. And my mother says to me, "Who ate the chocolate cake?" And I said, "I don't know." Chocolate all over my face. And younger people won't understand this part. But back then, they would call it child abuse. I mean, now they call it child abuse. My mother gave me the hardest whipping that I'd ever gotten. And then after that, she asked me one question. "Why do you think I whipped you?" Because I took in the chocolate. She said, "No, that's not why I did it. I did it because you lied." We need to take that lesson and spread it around. And ladies and gentlemen, listen to me carefully. We cannot allow fake information to become the norm. Come on now, we can't do it. I'm struggling with a cold, but I'm gonna get all of what I got to say out. We can't allow it to become the norm. We can't. And you are the guardians. You are the guardians. You are the guardians of our freedom of press. You are the ones that are in guerrilla warfare trying to make sure that the information gets out. So, that is why it is so critical for Congress to safeguard your rights and the rights of every person in our nation to obtain information through FOIA. We have to have transparency. Now, during the last election, the public made a decision. 5% who love our president and who thinks much of what he is doing. They like what he's doing. And I respect them. I really do. But even they said, we want to make him accountable. If you look at the map of where Democrats were elected, you can see that there were folks who said, we want to hold him accountable. We like him, he's our guy, but we want to hold him accountable. But how can you be accountable if there's no information? Think about it. Let that sink in. If the public doesn't know what's going on, if you can hold a secret meeting with Putin and nobody knows about it. Come on now. That is not the American way. We're better than that. We really are. You can't do the jobs you do. So if you block information, it's impossible to have accountability. I mean, think about it. And by the way, everybody in this room is accountable to somebody. Everybody. Even if it's just your husband or your wife, you're accountable. Your children are accountable. And when they fail to be accountable to someone, we got trouble. So FOIA is critical to helping the American people understand the decisions that are being made by their government. It is also critical to understanding who is influencing those decisions and how those decisions will affect their daily lives. When I took over as chairman of the Committee on Oversight and Reform in January, one of my first decisions was to determine which issues I wanted to have our subcommittees handle and which issues I wanted to handle at the full committee level. Because of the critical importance of FOIA and the federal records law, I decided to keep those issues at the full committee level in order to make sure that I give them my close, personal, microscopic attention. Amen. Remember I told you I'm the son of two preachers. One of our top priorities this Congress is to investigate agency compliance with FOIA and to evaluate how we can further improve the law. I often say to my staff, never mistake a comma for a period. Never mistake a comma for a period. In other words, things can always be improved upon. We can always be better on Tuesday than we were on Monday. And so we want to improve it. And so I hope that the Republicans on our committee will work with us in a collaborative and bipartisan manner, because this is an issue that has traditionally been bipartisan. In 2013, when I was in the minority, I worked with our Republican chairman at the time, Representative Darrell Issa, to introduce a FOIA reform bill. As you may recall, you know I'm a bipartisan guy, because talk about freedom of speech, Congressman Issa cut my phone off, cut my mic off. But I didn't let that stop me. We still did FOIA. You understand, sometimes we will have hiccups in our lives, but you gotta move on, because we must keep our eye on the prize. And I always remind myself that it's bigger than me. It's bigger than this moment. And so it took us 3 years of hard work with the help of many of you. And I thank you from the depths of my heart. And negotiation. And then with the help of Senator Cornyn, Patrick Leahy, and others, we got it over the finish line. You need to give yourselves a hand for that one. President Obama signed it into law in 2016. The FOIA Improvement Act is a prime example of how Congress can work together, keep our noses to the grindstone, and achieve positive results for all of the American people. Now that I'm chairman, I'm going to hold one of the committee's first hearings this Congress on FOIA. It will be on Wednesday. Hello. And you are all invited. We will hear testimony from the Department of Justice, the Department of the Interior, and the Environmental Protection Agency. I invited the Department of Justice because it is responsible for ensuring that federal agencies are complying with FOIA. In my opinion, they need to do a much better job because we are seeing far too much information being delayed and even withheld. I invited the Department of the Interior because they just proposed a rule that would make it harder for requesters to obtain information under FOIA. In fact, last week I sent a letter to the department raising concerns about their proposed rule, and I was heartened to be joined by Senators Leahy, Senator Grassley, and Senator Cornyn. And I want to thank them for being so supportive. As you notice, that's bipartisan. I invited EPA because our committee conducted an investigation last year of former Administrator Scott Pruitt and, of course, the senior staff. And we uncovered troubling issues with the way EPA was responding to FOIA. Administrator Pruitt's chief of staff told us that they refer, quote, politically charged, unquote, FOIA requests to political appointees for review. Did you hear that? That's deep. Deep six is deep. So he also said that certain requests are deliberately delayed. This is exactly why Congress needs to conduct robust oversight to shine a light on these types of abuses. Finally, since next week is Sunshine Week, that is the week when we focus on bringing greater transparency to government operations. I'm bringing Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross. That's going to be interesting. That hearing will be on Thursday. You are what? Invited. We want to know why he and other Trump administration officials gave misleading information and testimony about how the citizenship question was added to the census. Remember when I said a little bit earlier? You got to have information, but I got to put a footnote on that. It has to be accurate information. Accurate. This was a decision that experts across the board warned would harm the census and decrease the count. Keep in mind, Ross's own people, hello, he and other Trump administration officials gave misleading information and testimony about how the citizenship question was added to the census. Remember when I said a little bit earlier? You got to have information, but I got to put a footnote on that. It has to be accurate information. Accurate. This was a decision that experts across the board warned would harm the census and decrease the count. Keep in mind, Ross's own people, hello, Ross's own people said, don't do it. Said, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it, Mr. Secretary. And for some reason, they're trying to do it. But we've got to fight with everything we've got to make sure that we address this issue, again, of just getting us some accurate information, and then we can do the rest. As I close, as Oversight Committee Chairman, my immediate priority is to conduct exactly this type of rigorous and responsible oversight. Our work not only exposes problems in government, but it helps us develop reforms for the future. That's why our committee is called Oversight and Reform. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I'm truly honored to be here today. My mother and father, God bless their souls, would be very pleased to know that the little boy, mother and father were fourth grade educated sharecroppers, but they would be very pleased to know that the little boy, Elijah, the one that used to serve the Afro newspapers. I had a big route. I had a route so big, I employed other people. I was 11 years old. I'm serious, I did. Oh, I was good. I was good now. And their son, who would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning in middle school and ride the buses selling newspapers, the Sun paper. But they would be so pleased because they would know that not only did he serve the paper, but then he took the paper and he read it. But you are the ones. You are so very important. You're more important than you even know you are. You are so important. And so I beg you, I would ask, but asking is too cheap. I beg you to tear down any walls that might block you from getting information to the American people and to the world that they need to know. I beg you to continue to stand up for a strong FOIA law. I beg you to work with us. Because, ladies and gentlemen, and I beg you to do one other thing. I beg you not to be silent. Martin Luther King said it best. He said at some point, silence becomes betrayal. And I'm not going to betray my children. I'm not going to betray generations yet unborn. I want them to know exactly what was happening in 2019. I want them to know that we stood up for this democracy. I want them to understand that maybe there were some people that did not fully appreciate this democracy. And they thought that when we had a hiccup, they would bring somebody into the White House who would shake things up. But I want them to know that we, all of us, had great respect for those wonderful, awesome people who created the Constitution of the United States of America. I want them to know that we decided that we were going to be all about the business of freedom of press and freedom of getting the information out. And so, when we're dancing with the angels, somebody's going to read about what we did. But you know what? You got to write it. You got to expose it. Because if it does not get exposed by people like the people in this room, it will never get exposed. May God bless you on your awesome journey. And just know that I know that we're at a critical moment in our country's history, but I'm so glad. I am all so glad that you have come upon the earth at this moment. You have been called to this moment to be the guardians of our information and the flow of that information. May God bless.